Welcome, everybody. We're so excited to be here with you today. Eric is right around the corner. He's going to join me, too. I promise it's not just me. Good job. Good job. Wait, you ran too far. Come back.
Didn't you miss us?
I did miss
Alicia's
you guys.
back from a well-deserved vacation with family and friends, and so it's great to have her back.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was good to be away and be back and refreshed. And
Oh, you know what?
what?
Did I do that right? Yeah, we are on, aren't we?
Yes.
Well, there we go.
Oh, goodness.
Just making sure.
Anyways, yeah, I'm ready to get VBS going, which is why you see all of these decorations. We're so excited about VBS coming up. So we're excited.
All good things. So hopefully you are having a great week so far. It is Thursday, which is the almost Friday day.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost here, friends.
It's almost here.
I know, almost. It's almost the weekend.
We're making it.
We're making it. And so this time we love to gather on Thursday, one, to check in, but just take a break from your normal routine throughout the week, that you can actually check in with us. We're going to recap what happened last week in service, but also we're going to look forward to what's coming up.
Yeah.
And so Pastor Ryan is going to be preaching this week from Genesis chapter 28, verses 10 through 22. And so we'll take a glimpse at that. So let us know where you're watching from, what you're doing. Hopefully you're eating lunch, or you have a snack, or maybe a cup of coffee, afternoon Joe, that you can...
Coffee sounds good.
Oh, man, doesn't it?
Yes.
Are you Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts person?
So
Or make your own, because I know there's a lot of...
definitely not making my own. I really like Dunkin'. I think that's because my husband goes there all the time. But there wasn't a close Dunkin'. I mean, we had it a couple times, but it wasn't super close for us in the Keys. And so Starbucks was right around the corner, and so we had that a couple times, and I kind of went back to my old roots and like Starbucks better.
Okay.
For now.
So we may have to pass the one right here and drive down 192 a little bit.
Convenience is for sure.
Oh, for sure.
The answer.
The winner. All right. So as you're checking in with us, just to let you guys know, last week, just to recap, last week we are leaving the story of Abraham. And Pastor Ryan preached a phenomenal sermon that really captured that moment between Abraham and that moment of sacrifice of his son, Isaac, and then the ram showing up in the bush, stopping it all. But the main point, the biggest takeaway from that is that we learned that God's unbreakable promise, that God keeps his unbreakable promise, even when it seems that God is not. So in those moments that we feel that God's not there, God's not following through with what his word says, we can trust in God and we can surrender everything to him. And so it was a great sermon.
So
we had
true.
great conversation at Table Talk after the service as well. But this week, we're actually going to leave Abraham, which is exciting, because we're jumping over to Jacob. And it's Jacob's dream at Bethel. And that's what we're going to be focused on. And we're going to shift that idea that God keeps his unbreakable promise, even when it seems that he's not, to that God keeps the unbreakable promise even when it's undeserved. And so it kind of puts it on us. And so this story is a unique story. It's pretty interesting. It's a weird dream. If you've heard of Jacob's ladder, that's where this comes from.
Yeah.
But he has this dream. He falls asleep. Scripture says he pulls up a rock, lays his head on it, which I guess is a biblical pillow.
I don't know that I could sleep on a rock.
I don't know.
But maybe. If that's all you have.
If that's all you have, I guess. But he falls asleep, and he has his dream. There's this ladder. He starts climbing. And there at the top stood God. And God speaks to Jacob in the same form in which he spoke to Abraham, with the promises of the descendants and all that.
I love it.
And so where I'd like for us to look at for today, I think a good word for us is to focus in on verses 15 and 17. And so I know Alicia pulled it up for us, and she's going to read it for us.
Yay.
Yay, here we go.
All right, so what's more, I am with you, and I will protect you wherever you go. One day I will bring you back to the land. I will not leave you until I have finished giving you everything I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place," and I wasn't even aware of it. But he was also afraid and said, "What an awesome place this is. It is none other than the house of God, the very gateway to heaven." Love it. I love it.
Yeah, and so I really like, the reason I picked these two verses, because I really like Jacob's response, because actually there's two responses in this, right? The first one is that he says, surely, what is it? Surely the presence of the Lord, or surely the Lord is in this place.
Yes,
That's what it is.
yes.
And yet I'm not aware of it, right? So he's acknowledging that surely God was present, but I'm not aware of it,
Right.
or wasn't aware of it. And the second response was, how awesome is this place? It's acknowledging that in the moment he sees God in that moment.
Right.
And I really feel like those are two different responses that we all kind of have similar experiences with when it comes to our journey and our relationship with God. So I have this question for us, and feel free to comment. You can be as vulnerable as you want. You can be as funny as you want. But we love this time. Comment in the section. Let us know. Have you ever had a dream or perhaps a waking moment in your life where you have felt or knew for certain that God was guiding you? That God was guiding you. And so that could be maybe looking back and then realizing that God was there and God was guiding you, or something in the moment you knew for certain in this moment God is present, and you had an experience where you knew God was guiding you in that moment.
And I think it's crazy, but I think we've had both of those, for at least for me.
Yeah.
I've had both of those for instances. Like, I know looking back, God was there when my brother was diagnosed with leukemia, and there were 6 of us, and it was crazy. I don't know at the moment that I thought God is with us. I think it would have been an easier thing to deal with if I would have stepped back and realized that. But then I've also had spots where when I decided to go back to school, I knew God was guiding my decision. And it wasn't my decision. It was God saying, this is where you need to go, what you need to do. So that's cool to think of, like, back on life and think of how both of them have happened, you know. And those are just 2 examples, but just different ones.
Yeah, we had, I think for me, we had an assignment while I was at seminary that forced us to really look from the beginning of consciousness through, to really look into, pay attention to where God was moving. And you know, I had gone through several situations where there was a divorce in the family, so not having a father. And then for me, it was how men in my life stepped up. So whether that was mentors in the church, whether it was pastors, I could tell you when I went through confirmation, Reverend Pastor Dennis Miller and his wife Rachel, they're now like DSs. I think he's actually going back to be a pastor now up in Ohio. But I remember how much of an impact they've had on my life, you know, and to see coaches and mentors and men in my life step up and really fill that void, I think is something that in the moment I didn't really recognize it, because it was just like in the moment, right? Like, it's just growing up. And this is all through, even all through high school. I can even tell you my tennis coach as well, even my instructor as well, just phenomenal. It was looking back that I realized that God had his hand. God had orchestrated and was moving in those moments. And in the church, we call it prevenient grace, right? Where even when I don't even recognize it, God is moving, and his grace is sufficient. And how we respond to that grace, whether in the moment or even looking back, I'm so thankful. I am so thankful for every single person that had impacted my life. And who stepped up. Because I believe that is why I am the person that I am, why I am the man that I am today. So
that's awesome.
That's all
awesome.
good things. So we'd love to hear from you guys. Where have you felt or knew for certain that God was guiding you?
I talk about when my brother was diagnosed and being the oldest of six, and feeling like I needed to have like answers for like my younger siblings, or feeling like I needed to know everything so that if they had a question, I could answer them. And I was silly back then. Like I did all this research on the leukemia and his specific leukemia, child leukemia, and I had like a notebook all put together. I never opened it and never had to answer any questions because my siblings didn't come to me. Obviously, they went to our parents. But God, I could have been sad, and I was sad, but sad and just not wanting to like know more. And I think God pushed me to like not be the leader, but be somebody that if someone had a question, they could come to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like be the oldest sibling or whatever. I think with God's guidance, he made it as a easier transition, at least for me, to be stronger for others. I didn't look at it like that back then, but as I look back now, I'm like, that made me who I am today. Like, okay, thanks, God.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find it really maybe I would just say a blessing, just knowing that it was undeserved, but yet God still was there. When you don't have the answers, or when you can't say the words that you really want to express, you just don't know.
Yeah.
God shows up in some pretty amazing ways. And so as people, I'm going to assume as people are still thinking about the question and they're thinking, what should I write in the comment section to help their friends out, Alicia and Eric, during this tea time. I think a big part of this, especially in guidance, you and I both work in ministry.
Yeah.
And there's this huge, because the occupation is ministry, right? Like we've made the choice to do ministry and to answer that call. How have you felt God guiding you into that call? Because we're here, so obviously,
yeah,
there had to have been steps in which.
Well, I'll tell you, I still ask God, like when I walk, and I tell my youth kids, when we're discussing like a hard topic or one that I don't really feel like I know. I mean, I've done my research, I've studied it, kind of thing, to prepare, but not feeling, ready for all of the answers. You never know what a student's going to ask. So I tell them all the time, I walk in, first thing I say is, Lord, give me the answers. Lord, guide me through this, right? Like, I don't know that in ministry you could ever be 100% prepared, but holding on and knowing that God is with you, guiding you through that, I don't feel like I have to have all the answers. I feel like I just have to let God talk.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's gotten me through ministry, because
Yeah, it's that act of surrender, right?
Yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it truly is like anytime, having been serving in ministry for a long time, anytime that I've felt like, I would say I would land in the camp of doing it on my own strength, or being just walking in unprepared, being like, I got this. Like, this is no. God has an amazing way of bringing about humility, and it is that act of surrender, right? It solicits a response, and I'm not gonna dive too much into it, because I know Pastor Ryan wants room for his sermon on Sunday. But if you keep reading past 17, you'll actually see Jacob's response.
Yeah.
Right? When we have an encounter, when we know for certain that God is guiding us or is directing us, it forces a response.
Yeah.
And I think that's an amazing thing that you brought up, is that it does take surrender. It's like, you know what? Come on, God.
I've prepared as much as I can.
I walked through this door. I prepared, but I walked through this door. Now it's your turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Show up.
Yeah, for sure. And he
So.
always does. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even when he doesn't give us an answer that, like, even when I feel like I didn't give an answer, like, I'm like, man, maybe we just talk about, maybe it's something that a child or a youth is feeling, and I don't have an answer to that. Like, I don't know, I can't say that I know how you feel, right? But there's been times where I didn't have an answer, but just listening and, like, trying to talk through it has been the answer they needed, you know?
Nice. Yeah.
And that's for sure not me, so that's for sure God. Looks like Bonnie said something.
All right.
I won't pull mine all the way up. Can you pull it?
Yeah. One Sunday during worship when singing Sinking Deep, I love that song. After Holy Communion, I prayed that I could see his face. I next felt as I left the building, Jesus lifted me up and showed me so many brothers and sisters. Let's see here. I love very much. As I raised up, floating above my church family, I started to ascend towards the crowd. Everyone opened their arms, welcoming me in. And then Jesus said, when you need to see me, look around. When I finally felt the hands of everyone begin to touch me, I found myself back where I had always been standing, in the third pew on the left, still singing, surrounded by the people of God that God sent me to. And every single one of those people were there for me, even in my darkest valleys, and have truly shown Jesus to me.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I have goosebumps. Thanks for sharing, Bonnie.
Yeah. So let me go fix the audio real quick.
Okay.
Yep, I'll be right back.
Okay. Thanks for sharing, Bonnie. I love that. Do you want me to not talk? Okay. Coming back down while really you're sitting there the whole time or standing there the whole time and being surrounded by the people that God wants you to know loves you and that you love is amazing. I love that thought and idea that that how you felt and how you went through that. I love that. I love that you shared it. Thank you for sharing it. Sometimes I find myself, I was reading back through it, sometimes I find myself feeling like not in that space either when we're in worship. Like, I feel like I'm in